Welcome to The Economy Magazine. I'm Benjamin Chong Alfares with an overview of the latest events across the world economy and the financial markets. Our top story of the day takes us to the U.S., where the government began a partial shutdown for the first time in 17 years, putting up to 1 million workers on unpaid leave. We'll have more on that story following the headlines. We go first to Italy, where shares and bonds took a dive following the Conservative Party's pullout from the Grand Coalition. Former Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi ordered 5 ministers from his PDL party to abandon the coalition government, leaving it unable to function. If a government collapse derails Italy's fiscal targets, leading ratings firms may further cut the country's credit rating.
Back in April, we had such an inconclusive result, a lot of fear in the market about what was going to happen with Italy. It's the third largest bond market in the world. It is absolutely imperative for Italy to stay in the Eurozone. Its removal of Italy from the Eurozone will essentially mean the end of the Eurozone itself. So I think the big talking point here is, are we going to see a repeat of what we saw in April, this inconclusive political?
In the UK, British Finance Minister George Osborne proposed a welfare plan to make the long-term unemployed work for their benefits. Under the Help to Work program, long-term unemployed will be forced to take work placements such as cleaning up litter to avoid losing a portion of their welfare. The program, which is due to start next April, will cost £300 million. Osborne's pitch is designed to appeal to working Britons, many of whom feel the country's annual £200 billion welfare system is too generous.
No one will get something for nothing. Help to work, and in return, work for the dole. Because a fair welfare system is fair to those who need it and fair to those who pay for it too.
Staying in Europe, the Eurozone's inflation rate dropped to the lowest level in 3.5 years in September. Prices of consumer goods across the 17-nation bloc rose 1.1% in September from a year earlier, well below the European Central Bank's 2% target. The inflation rate is the lowest since February 2010 and serves as a sign that the recent recovery in the Eurozone lacks momentum. In Japan, Prime Minister Shinzo Abe ordered the first sales tax increase since 1997. The sales tax will rise to 8% from 5% in April. Though the higher tax is likely to boost growth, it puts additional pressure on households already hit by a rising cost of living and declines in pay. To simultaneously help stimulate the economy, Abe also agreed to inject a $51 billion stimulus package. The plan will include public work spending and tax breaks to encourage companies to increase capital spending and wages. As the U.S. Congress remained in partisan deadlock over President Barack Obama's health care reforms, the government began a partial shutdown for the first time in 17 years. But as the U.S. economy remains fragile, the costs of the shutdown are likely to be more harmful than ever before. More in the following report by Anthony Fair News reporter Daniel Roth.
Madam President, this is a very sad day for our country. Agencies of government are in the process of closing down. It now appears that the House is not going to do anything to keep the government from shutting down.
At midnight last night, it became official. The United States government failed to agree on a federal budget, and Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid announced the subsequent shutdown of a number of federal agencies and services in the United States. Budget feud is being driven by the right flank of the Republican Party, known as the Tea Party. They have a disagreement with the Affordable Care Act's implementation in the upcoming budget. While GOPers maintain that health care reform will drive up prices, the Democrats counter this, saying that there are tax credits and subsidies built into the law that make this a moot point. Indeed, one poll reports that 88% of Americans and 83% of Republicans asked support the Act's provisions for small businesses. President Obama has said that he will not negotiate on the Affordable Care Act.
The Affordable Care Act is moving forward. That funding is already in place. You can't shut it down. This is a law that passed both houses of Congress, a law that bears my signature, a law that the Supreme Court upheld as constitutional, a law that voters chose not to repeal last November.
Tourism could be the most affected by the shutdown. 368 national parks will be closed, as well as national museums and zoos. In all, about 800,000 employees are being forced onto unpaid leave by the shutdown.
Congress has passed, and I'm signing into law, legislation to make sure you get your paychecks on time. And we'll continue working to address any impact this shutdown has on you and your families.
In 1995, under Bill Clinton, the 28-day shutdown cost $2 billion. An estimate from Goldman Sachs suggests that the losses this time around could be around $8 billion per week. On top of all this, within the next 15 days, Congress has to negotiate raising the federal debt ceiling. It's a debate that could lengthen or repeat the shutdown, depending on what happens in the coming days, particularly if the Republicans take the second opportunity to work against the Affordable Care Act.
Utah for that very good question. And the answer is...
Joining us in the studio now is reporter Tal Schneider.
Hello.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Sure.
So, Ms. Schneider, what exactly does this really mean? I mean, a shutdown. I mean, what does it mean to the American people?
It means that first we heard the national parks. This is nothing actually, but then when the weeks, if the weeks or the days will start to follow, then they will have problems paying the salaries or paying veterans their whatever they're about to be paid, and it's inconvenient. It's a hassle for many Americans, and of course it's a hassle for the federal government. It cannot function without its workers. It's 800,000 workers. Half of them are the defense ministry workers, I think Chuck Hagel, the Minister of Defense, just said a few hours ago, this is unnecessary shutdown for our working progress.
Okay. So. We're also joined now by a reporter in Washington, D.C., Tal Schneider. Sorry, not Tal Schneider. Steve Katz. I'm sorry about that. Steve, can you hear me?
Hi, good morning, or good afternoon. How are you?
Good. Wonderful. So I don't know if you just heard what Ms. Schneider had to say in terms of the effects now following the shutdown, but can you give us some more information about what's happening in the States? What does it mean to the American citizens? I mean, certainly about 800,000 people will be out of work for God knows how long, but what does it mean? What is the significance of this kind of thing, this event?
Well, it's a major significance. Half of those 800,000 furloughed employees that you're referring to are Department of Defense employees, mostly civilian. Some people are still going to work today. Those are what they deem essential workers. Those would be people that work for national security, Department of Homeland Security, things like that, although they may not get paid until the shutdown is actually over. So it's a very big concern. In addition to that, think about the regular visitors to the United States. For example, if you were coming to Israel, it would be similar to the Holy Wall being closed indefinitely. So you have visitors coming from other countries to the United States that can't go to the Statue of Liberty, can't visit the White House. 401 of the national parks are closed today.
Okay.
So it's a major inconvenience, to say the least. But a lot of businesses, small businesses, people that depend on week-to-week paychecks are affected because they work in the travel-related industry and tourism. So it's a major concern, not to mention just anybody who's related to the government furloughed workers, small businesses that are around the government buildings and government agencies where they make money off of little things like lunches and breakfasts.
So, Mr. Katz, though, what does this really mean on a national level? What does it mean to the government, the fact that they could not come to an agreement?
Well, and it's a good point that you raise, because this is just 2 weeks ahead of the deficit raising issue.
Of course.
So it's a big problem, and both sides seem to be entrenched. President Obama and the Democrats have said they will not negotiate when it comes to Obamacare, which, as you may know, those franchises, the Obama healthcare franchises, start today in 16 states. The whole premise on the GOP side, the Republican side, was to prevent implementation of this, and they failed. So that is going to affect today.
What happens if they don't meet the mid-October deadline of the debt ceiling? I mean, what happens then?
As bad as things are at the moment, the idea of not being able to meet or be able to borrow on the 17th of October would be devastating, not just for the United States, but worldwide, because then the U.S. has a problem in terms of debt, in terms of being able to raise money between collecting taxes and paying that debt. It would affect markets both here in the United States and worldwide. So that's something that's never happened before. And both sides, although they did let this shutdown happen today, both sides certainly would behoove them not to let that happen.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Steve Katz in Washington, for being with us. We're going to take it back to the studio now. So, Ms. Schneider, Can you give us some more information about Obamacare? Because that's really kind of what it all comes down to. And if I'm not mistaken, 17 years ago, Medicare was also, one of the main issues.
Right. The healthcare issue is on the plate for many years now. It's actually been brought up by Hillary Clinton back then when she was First Lady, and she, this is the big promise of the Obama administration since he announced his candidacy. So it's been 5 years now that he's, preaching for that. And
why is it so important to him?
It is so important because there is tens of millions of Americans that are uninsured under the current circumstances. I was a Washington, D.C. correspondent. I lived there for many years, and the uninsured is a huge population which is deprived. It cannot get health insurance. It cannot get a good treatment. And this is the masterpiece of the Democratic Party. You have to say that the Republican Party it's not all of it that are resisting, because this is the Tea Party that are the extremists that are against it. But you can already hear they are suffering from a public image right now, because the public polls suggest that most of the Americans do want this healthcare to start working for them. And some of the in the Republican Party, we're going to see a breaking of the lines, as long as we go on the days with it.
I would think, obviously they're very, very busy, involved with all the domestic issues, and our own Prime Minister, Bibi Netanyahu, is trying to lobby there for interest. It's horrible timing, isn't it?
Non-timing. Timing. He made a mistake not going to the UN last week. He actually had a problem with the religious side of the Israelis, because we had a holiday here, and he could not spend his entire holiday in New York City. He cannot fly back, during a Sabbath. So he decided to postpone his visit. That's a crucial decision that made his all his hasbara, all his public diplomacy efforts down to the drain. Nobody listens right now. His speech is scheduled in a few hours today. We're not going to hear it echoed or hardly repeated anywhere, except the Prime Minister Facebook page, probably.
Right. But clearly, there's beyond affecting just the federal workers or the American citizens, this affects not just the tourists that go to America, it affects everybody, essentially, the fact that this is going on.
The speech?
No, not the speech. I'm saying just the shutdown itself.
Of course, but you have to, if you look at the Twitter accounts of American people today, and all what's going on in the social networks, you see people are signing up for their healthcare for the first time in their life, and Obama is going to go into a media blitz today, having press briefings and everything, and bringing people into the White House that are, for the first time in their life, are entitled to healthcare. This is for Obama supposed to be a very exciting and celebration moment.
Right. So I-24 News reporter Dallin Roth, what do you have to say on the issue?
Well, so I was looking through some of the media today, trying to judge some of the reactions to what happened at midnight last night. And the first thing that caught my eye was this Fox News blog post. Fox News, which is, to put it lightly, critical of Obama, actually just drags him through the mud on most days. They put a blog post up that just laid waste to the Republican Party, to the idea that Obamacare, that the Affordable Care Act was going to be expensive, was going to be harmful. It laid waste to these ideas, talking about how the U.S. spends about 50% more than the next highest spender on healthcare, which is Switzerland, talking about how there's provisions in there for small businesses and individuals to get subsidies and tax credits to cover differences. It really just, Fox News posted this piece, just really destroying the GOP argument.
What can you just give us some information? Why is the GOP, the Tea Party, why are they so against it? Can you explain that?
I think the best way to put it is that their ethic is that of individual freedom, and for them, that means not being tied to anything. At the furthest extreme, libertarianism talks about radical self responsibility, and they somehow link this to the Affordable Care Act. I think what most developed nations, though, say is freedom is enhanced by having a safety net.
It's actually put more taxes on the people, because if the law force you to pay your health insurance, then they consider it as taxes, and the whole right-wing ideology is against more taxes on the people. This is really against. I mean, many people in the right wing, not just the Tea Party, are against it, and they have slim corrections. But the whole idea of putting more taxes on the people. I have to say, for the Fox News, a correspondent asked the White House spokesperson, how come you are willing to negotiate with the Iranian leader, but you are unwilling to negotiate with the Republican leader of the House? And that was a funny question, because, coming up for the next 2 weeks in the debt ceiling, it's really important to see who will come of this fight with his upper hand, because if Obama will keep being stubborn, then he go into the next fight with a better position, and the opposite goes.
Thank you very much, Ms. Snyder. Thank you very much, Daniel Roth. That takes us to the end of this edition. Thank you very much for watching. We'll be here again tomorrow, and please send us your reactions on Twitter, on Facebook, and follow us on the website. Thank you.